The great hall of the Galactic Council stretched for miles in every direction. Crystal pillars reached toward a ceiling that seemed to touch the stars themselves. Representatives from 47 different worlds sat in their assigned seats, their forms as varied as the planets they called home. Ambassador Sarah Chen stood alone in the center of the hall. The weight of every alien gaze pressed down on her shoulders. She wore her formal Earth diplomatic uniform, but it felt thin and inadequate in this place of cosmic power. High above her, the council speakers began to announce their judgment. The Zephyrian speaker floated in a sphere of blue light, its crystalline form pulsing with ancient wisdom. When it spoke, its voice rang like distant bells. The species known as humanity has been observed for 3 of their centuries, the Zephyrian announced. We have watched them spread across their local star systems. We have seen their nature. Next to the Zephyrian, the Draknari speaker rose from its throne. The massive reptilian being stood 12 feet tall, its scales gleaming like polished armor. When it spoke, its voice rumbled like thunder. Humans are chaotic, the Draknari declared. They wage wars among themselves, yet show mercy to their enemies. They destroy their own world, yet weep over the death of small animals. They create beautiful art, then use the same hands to build terrible weapons. The third speaker belonged to the Veil Collective. It appeared as a shifting shadow that spoke without sound, its words appearing directly in the minds of all present. Other species follow predictable paths, the Veil communicated. We Zephyrians chose the way of pure thought. The Draknari chose strength and honor. The Melody chose harmony with nature. Each species finds its role in the galactic order. Ambassador Chen felt her heart racing. She knew what was coming, but she had to try one more time. Honored speakers, she said, her voice carrying clearly through the vast hall. Humanity asks only for the chance to prove ourselves. We have much to offer the galaxy. Our diversity is our strength, not our weakness. The Zephyrian's light pulsed brighter. Your diversity is exactly the problem. You cannot be predicted. You cannot be controlled. You adapt too quickly to any situation. Around the hall, other representatives nodded their agreement. The slug-like gastropods secreted agreement pheromones. The plant-based Verdani rustled their leaves in approval. Even the peaceful Aquarian delegates sent supportive sonar clicks through their water tanks. The Draknari speaker continued the indictment. In just 300 of your years, you have gone from riding beasts to traveling between stars. Other species take thousands of years for such advancement. Your rate of change threatens the stability we have built over millions of years. The evidence display activated above the hall. Holographic images showed human history in fast motion. Wars and peace treaties. The rise and fall of empires. The development of nuclear weapons. The first steps into space. The colonization of Mars and the outer planets. Observe their pattern, the Veil Collective transmitted. They excel at everything they attempt. Science, art, warfare, philosophy. No species should be this adaptable. It suggests an evolutionary anomaly. More images appeared. Human soldiers fighting alongside alien peacekeepers. Human scientists making breakthrough discoveries. Human artists creating works that moved alien audiences to tears. Human children playing with alien youngsters in the colonial worlds. They form emotional bonds too easily, the Zephyrian noted. They make other species question their own nature. Several worlds have already reported cultural contamination from human contact. Ambassador Chen's hands clenched into fists. We call that friendship and cooperation. We want to learn from you and share what we know. That is precisely the danger, the Draknari rumbled. You make others want to be like you. You spread change wherever you go. The vote was called. One by one, the 47 worlds cast their judgment. The Rigelians voted for exile. The Centauri Federation agreed. The ancient progenitor collective, older than human civilization, also condemned humanity. When the count finished, the result was unanimous. 47 votes for exile, 0 for acceptance. The Zephyrian speaker's voice rang out with finality. The council has decided. Humanity poses a contamination risk to galactic civilization. You will be relocated to the void sectors beyond the outer rim. Ambassador Chen felt the blood drain from her face. The void sectors were a death sentence. That region of space contained nothing but failed stars, asteroid fields, and the dangerous ruins left by an extinct race called the Architects. You cannot do this, she protested. We have colonies on 17 worlds. Millions of humans live throughout the galaxy. The Draknari speaker stood to its full height. You have one solar cycle to gather your people and withdraw beyond the barrier. We will construct an energy field to contain the contamination. The Veil Collective added its thoughts. Any human found outside the void sectors after the deadline will be destroyed. This is the mercy of a quick death rather than slow exile. Around the hall, the alien representatives began to leave. Some looked sad, others relieved. A few seemed genuinely sorry about the decision, but none spoke in humanity's defense. Ambassador Chen stood alone as the great hall emptied. The weight of carrying such terrible news back to Earth felt crushing. How could she tell them that humanity had been judged and found too human for the galaxy's taste? The journey back to Earth took 3 weeks. During that time, emergency messages flew between all human colonies. The news spread like wildfire. Some called for war against the Council. Others demanded immediate compliance to save lives. President Morrison's response was broadcast to every human settlement in the galaxy. She stood before the United Earth Assembly, her gray hair catching the light of the cameras. "My fellow humans," she began, "we have been cast out by those who call themselves our betters. They fear us because we dare to grow and change. They fear us because we refuse to fit into their neat categories." She paused, letting her words sink in. "But we are not victims. We are survivors. Our ancestors crossed oceans in wooden boats. They climbed mountains and explored frozen continents. They reached for the stars when everyone said it was impossible." The president's voice grew stronger. "The Council thinks they are sentencing us to death. Instead, they are setting us free. Free from their rules. Free from their limits. Free to become whatever we choose to be." The evacuation began immediately. Ships of every size and type joined the effort. Military vessels, merchant freighters, luxury liners, and exploration craft all worked together. Even the colony ships that had carried the first settlers were pressed into service. As the deadline approached, the last human outposts prepared to abandon everything they had built. On New Geneva, families packed their most precious belongings. On Kepler Station, researchers destroyed their laboratories rather than leave their work for others. The final convoy gathered at the edge of the barrier. Behind them lay everything humanity had achieved among the stars. Ahead lay the unknown darkness of the void sectors. Ambassador Chen watched from the bridge of the lead ship as the barrier activated. A wall of energy stretched across space, cutting humanity off from the galaxy they had tried to join. But as she looked around at the faces of her fellow humans, she saw something the Council had not expected. Instead of despair, she saw determination. Instead of defeat, she saw defiance. The galaxy thought it had solved its human problem. It had no idea what it had actually done. It had freed humanity to become something beyond imagination. The first year in the void sectors nearly broke them. Captain Maria Santos watched the stars through the bridge windows of the colony ship New Horizon. Behind her stretched a convoy of 300 vessels carrying the last of humanity's evacuees from the outer colonies. Ahead lay nothing but the hostile emptiness of space that the Galactic Council considered uninhabitable. The void sectors earned their name. Where normal space teemed with life-giving stars and resource-rich systems, this region contained only the dregs of creation. Failed brown dwarf stars provided barely enough heat to warm a moon. Asteroid fields drifted in chaotic patterns, their orbits disrupted by gravitational anomalies. And everywhere, scattered like broken toys, lay the ruins of the architects. Dr. James Park, the fleet's chief scientist, approached Captain Santos with his daily report. His face looked tired but determined. "The radiation readings are still off the charts near the architect ruins," he said, "but we're learning to predict the patterns. The fields pulse in regular cycles." Santos nodded. "Any progress on understanding their technology?" "Some. The artifacts seem to respond to neural activity. When our researchers get close, the devices activate. Most just light up, but a few have shown more complex responses. The early months tested every survival skill humanity possessed. The failed stars provided little energy, forcing them to develop new power sources. The asteroid fields offered raw materials, but in forms that required innovative processing techniques. Food supplies dwindled until agricultural specialists found ways to grow crops in the strange radiation fields that permeated the region. Children born in the void sectors grew up different from their parents. They adapted faster to the low-gravity environments. Their eyes adjusted better to the dim light of the failed stars. Most remarkably, they seemed to have an intuitive understanding of architect technology that baffled the adult researchers. 8-year-old Tommy Chen could make an architect crystal glow just by touching it. His sister Lisa could predict when the gravity anomalies would shift. Other children showed similar abilities, as if the void sectors were changing humanity at a fundamental level. The breakthrough came during the third year. Dr. Elena Vasquez was studying an architect control panel when it suddenly activated completely. The ancient alien symbols began to glow, and information flowed directly into her mind. "They were like us," she reported to the colony council afterward. "The architects? They were exiled here too millions of years ago. This was their prison that became their laboratory. The knowledge the architects left behind changed everything. Their technology worked on principles that human science was only beginning to understand. They could manipulate matter at the quantum level. They could fold space to create pocket dimensions. Most importantly, they had learned to transfer consciousness between different forms. Humanity began to adapt their technology to human needs. The first breakthrough was the matter converters. Instead of mining asteroids the hard way, they could break them down into pure energy and rebuild them as needed. Raw iron became steel, silicon became computer chips, carbon became diamonds or life-sustaining organic compounds. The second breakthrough was dimensional engineering. Human colonies no longer needed to exist on planetary surfaces. They could create pocket dimensions anchored to asteroids or even empty space. These pocket worlds could be as large as Earth but completely controlled by their creators. Within a decade, the first dimensional colonies were thriving. New Geneva existed in a space that was technically only a few cubic meters, but felt as large as a continent. The gravity, atmosphere, and even the apparent sun could be adjusted at will. Children who had known only the cramped conditions of generation ships now played in vast meadows that existed in folded space. The third breakthrough was consciousness transfer. The architects had discovered that thought, memory, and personality could be stored in quantum fields and moved between different physical forms. Death became optional. Humans could back up their minds and transfer them to new bodies if needed. But humanity didn't just copy architect technology. They improved it. Where the architects had created rigid, perfect systems, humans added flexibility and creativity. Their dimensional spaces could grow and change. Their consciousness transfer allowed for temporary sharing of minds and experiences. The generation ships that had carried them into exile became mobile cities. Their hulls were expanded using dimensional technology to house millions, while appearing unchanged from the outside. Inside, they contained forests, lakes, and cities that defied every law of physics the galaxy thought it knew. Commander Sarah Chen, daughter of the former Earth ambassador, stood on the observation deck of the new Earth dimensional colony. Through the viewing panel, she could see the swirling chaos of the void sectors, but around her stretched green hills under a warm artificial sun. "Status report?" she asked her aide. "Population is now at 50 million across all dimensional colonies," Lieutenant Torres replied. "Industrial output has increased 300% this year. The new consciousness storage facilities are online, and our exploration missions. The scout ships have mapped 3 more architect sites. We're finding intact technology that's teaching us new applications. The children's adaptation continues to accelerate. The children were the real miracle. Those born in the void sectors could interface with architect technology as naturally as breathing. They could see quantum fields with their naked eyes. They could sense dimensional boundaries and gravitational anomalies. They were becoming something new, something that was still human but more than what humanity had been before. By the 20th year of exile, humanity had not just survived, but transformed. Their technology surpassed anything the Galactic Council possessed. Their society had evolved beyond the limitations of physical resources. They had solved death, scarcity, and the bounds of space itself. The failed stars that had once threatened them became power sources for experiments that bent reality. The chaotic asteroid fields became raw materials for constructions that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. The dangerous architect ruins became schools where human children learned to reshape matter with their thoughts. Dr. Park, now elderly but kept vital by consciousness backup technology, summarized their transformation in his final report. "We came here as refugees," he wrote. "We were a species confined to normal space and linear time, limited by physics and biology. The Council saw us as chaotic and unpredictable, but we were still comprehensible to them." He paused in his writing, looking out at a colony ship that was somehow larger inside than outside. powered by a star that had been rebuilt to burn more efficiently. We are no longer that species. We have become something that the Council could not imagine in their worst fears or wildest dreams. We are still human, but we are human unlimited. We are what happens when humanity refuses to accept any boundaries at all. The transformation was complete. The galaxy that had exiled them thought humanity was safely contained behind the barrier. Slowly dying in the wasteland of the void sectors, they had no idea that humanity was preparing to return as something beyond their comprehension. The exile was ending. The real story was about to begin. 300 years had passed since humanity disappeared behind the barrier. The Galactic Council rarely spoke of them anymore. Most assumed the troublesome species had died out in the harsh void sectors as intended. High Speaker Zelathan floated in his meditation chamber aboard the Council's primary station. As the current Zephyrian leader, he maintained the ancient traditions of his people. Crystal formations grew from his transparent flesh, storing centuries of accumulated wisdom. The exile of humanity was recorded there, filed away as a solved problem. High Speaker, his aide transmitted through thought speech. The quarterly Galactic Stability Report is ready for your review. Zelathan absorbed the data instantly. Crime rate steady, trade flowing normally, no major conflicts between member species. The careful order they had built over millions of years remained intact, yet something nagged at his crystalline consciousness. Small anomalies appeared throughout the reports, statistical irregularities that made no sense. In the Rigelian system, a plague had mysteriously ended just as it reached critical levels. The cure appeared simultaneously in medical databases across 3 planets, but no one could identify its origin. Near the Centauri Federation's borders, a devastating asteroid impact had been prevented when the massive rock simply changed course. Gravitational readings showed impossible forces had deflected it, but no known technology could generate such effects. Most puzzling were the inspiration events. Across the galaxy, scientists made breakthrough discoveries after experiencing vivid dreams. Artists created masterpieces following strange visions. Leaders signed peace treaties after sudden changes of heart that they themselves couldn't explain. Dr. Yuki Tanaka crouched behind a shipping container on Kepler Station, her heart racing. The stealth suit she wore bent light around her body, making her nearly invisible to both organic eyes and electronic sensors. According to every scanner in the galaxy, she wasn't there. She watched as gastropod medics tended to victims of the recent contamination leak. The acidic spill should have killed dozens, but mysterious medical supplies had appeared just in time. The gastropods didn't question their good fortune. They were too busy saving lives. Yuki smiled as she watched a young gastropod child recover from exposure poisoning. The antidote in her bloodstream had been developed by human scientists studying gastropod biology for over a century. The knowledge came from careful observation, medical records stolen from public databases, and genuine care for species that had voted for humanity's exile. Her communication implant buzzed with a message from the observation team. Target acquired. Proceed with Humanitarian Intervention Protocol 7. Yuki activated her dimensional storage device. A pocket of folded space opened, revealing medical supplies that didn't exist in normal physics. Quantum-engineered medications that could cure diseases no galactic species had ever encountered. Healing nanites that worked faster than any known technology. She placed the supplies where the medics would find them, then faded back into invisibility. By the time the gastropods discovered the miracle medicines, she would be light years away. This was happening across the galaxy. Humans had learned to move unseen through the space that had once welcomed them. Their ships existed in dimensional folds that made them undetectable. Their agents wore stealth technology that bent reality itself around them. But they weren't seeking revenge. They were gardening. Commander Lisa Chen stood in the command center of the Invisible Hand, humanity's most advanced exploration vessel. Around her, displays showed dozens of ongoing operations throughout galactic space. Each mission followed the same pattern: observe, analyze, and help if needed. Status report on Operation Mercy, she requested. Lieutenant Park, a third-generation Void Sector's native, consulted his neural interface. The Melody homeworld situation is stabilizing. Their soil contamination is being neutralized by the microorganisms we introduced. They think it's a natural adaptation. And the Draknari border conflict? Resolved. Both sides experienced the dream sequences our psychic ops team broadcast. They're negotiating a mining rights agreement instead of fighting a war. Lisa nodded. The dream broadcasts were one of their most effective tools. Humans had learned to project thoughts and emotions directly into alien minds. Not control, never control. Just gentle suggestions, new perspectives, alternative solutions to problems that seemed unsolvable. The Draknari warriors dreamed of their children growing up in peace. The Zephyrian philosophers received visions of beauty beyond pure logic. The Veil Collective felt emotions they had never known they could experience. None of them knew where these dreams came from. They attributed them to divine inspiration, natural evolution, or random neural activity. They never suspected that human empaths were carefully crafting each vision to help them become better versions of themselves. In the deepest levels of the dimensional colonies, the Council of Minds met in session. These were the humans who had volunteered for permanent consciousness expansion. Their bodies existed in quantum stasis while their minds explored possibilities beyond physical limitations. Sarah Chen's consciousness floated among her fellow council members. After 3 centuries, she had become something that was still recognizably human, but vastly more than any individual mind could contain. The Galactic Stability Index is improving, reported Dr. Martinez, whose consciousness now spanned multiple dimensional layers. Crime down 12%. Interstate conflicts down 30%. Scientific advancement up 25%. The gardening protocols are working, agreed Dr. Vasquez. Her awareness touched thousands of ongoing operations simultaneously. The galaxy is becoming healthier without knowing why. But Sarah sensed something darker approaching. Her consciousness reached out across space and time, touching the probability flows that surrounded major events. There's a disturbance coming, she announced. A war! The Draknari Empire will clash with the younger species. It will threaten to tear apart everything the Council has built. The other minds focused on the timeline she was observing. They saw fleets gathering, old grievances surfacing, the careful balance of galactic civilization beginning to crack under pressure. How long? Asked Dr. Park. 50 years, perhaps less. And when it comes, our secret interventions won't be enough. We'll have to reveal ourselves. The Council of Minds contemplated this possibility. For 3 centuries, they had worked in shadows, helping the galaxy heal from problems it didn't even know it had. They had become the galaxy's silent guardians, protecting the very species that had cast them out. But war on this scale would require open action. It would mean ending their exile not through negotiation, but through demonstration of power the galaxy couldn't ignore. Young Tommy Chen, now a grown man with children of his own, stood in the observation gardens of New Earth Colony. His daughter played nearby, casually reshaping matter with her thoughts as easily as building with blocks. She was 4th-generation Void Sectors born, and her abilities defied everything the galaxy thought it knew about physics and biology. "Daddy, why can't we visit the pretty aliens?" she asked, holding a butterfly she had created from pure energy. Tommy knelt beside her. "Because they're not ready for us yet, sweetheart. They're still learning how to be friends with each other. When will they be ready?" Tommy looked up at the stars visible through the dimensional viewing portal. Somewhere out there, forces were gathering that would soon shatter the peace. The galaxy that had rejected humanity would need humanity's help. "Soon," he said. "Very soon." The silent revolution was ending. The time for shadows and whispers was passing. Humanity had spent 3 centuries becoming something the galaxy had never imagined. Now they would have to reveal what they had become. The galaxy was about to learn that its greatest mistake had been setting humanity free. The Second Galactic War erupted like a supernova across civilized space. General Thraknar of the Draknari Empire stood on the bridge of his flagship Bloodclaw, watching enemy fleets burn in the void before him. His scales gleamed with battle fury as explosion after explosion lit up the darkness. This was what his people were born for. This was their destiny. "Status report," he roared at his communications officer. 17 coalition worlds have fallen, General. Their fleets are in full retreat. Victory is within our grasp. Thraknar bared his teeth in satisfaction. The younger species had grown too bold, challenging Draknari authority in the galaxy. They had forgotten their place in the natural order. This war would remind them, but the coalition forces were fighting harder than expected. The peaceful melody had developed surprising weapons. The logical Zephyrians had created battle strategies of cold efficiency. Even the slug-like gastropods had contributed powerful defensive technologies. The war had been raging for 3 years. Entire star systems lay in ruins. Billions had died. The careful balance of galactic civilization was cracking under the strain. On the council station, High Speaker Zelathan observed the destruction with growing horror. The ancient Zephyrian had lived through many conflicts, but nothing like this. The war threatened to destroy everything they had built over millions of years. The Draknari fleets are moving toward the core worlds, his aide reported. General Thraknar has declared his intention to conquer the council itself. Zelathan's crystalline form pulsed with distress. We cannot allow this. Activate the Omega protocols. All council fleets are to converge on the core systems for final defense. It was a desperate move. The council had remained neutral throughout the war, hoping to mediate peace. But with Thraknar threatening the heart of galactic government, they had no choice but to fight. The final battle began in the Nexus system, home to the council station itself. Draknari warships emerged from hyperspace like a swarm of metal predators, their weapons charged with the fury of a warrior race that had never known defeat. Coalition forces gathered to make their last stand. Zephyrian crystal ships hummed with pure energy. Melody biovessels pulsed with living weapons. Gastropod defensive platforms secreted protective barriers around the council station. The battle was fierce but hopeless. The Draknari had superior numbers and technology. One by one, coalition ships fell to their advance. The council station's shields began to fail under the massive bombardment. General Thraknar prepared for his final victory. The conquest of the council would make him emperor of the galaxy. The Draknari Empire would rule over all species as nature intended. Prepare the planet-killer weapon, he commanded. We will destroy the council station and end this war once and for all. The massive weapon began to charge. Energy gathered from across the Draknari fleet, channeling into a device that could crack worlds in half. In minutes, the council station and everyone aboard would be vaporized. Then space itself began to twist. At first, the sensors registered it as a malfunction. Reality seemed to bend and fold in impossible ways. Gravitational readings went crazy. Energy signatures appeared that matched no known technology. General, his sensor officer called out in confusion. I'm detecting massive spatial distortions. Something is coming through dimensional space. Thraknar snarled. Coalition reinforcements? It doesn't matter. Nothing can stop us now. But what emerged from folded space was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Ships that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously materialized around the battlefield. They were beautiful and terrible, crafted from materials that shouldn't exist and powered by forces that bent physics itself. Their hulls reflected light in patterns that hurt to look at directly. The largest vessel appeared directly between the Draknari fleet and the council station. It was impossible to judge its true size because it seemed to exist in several different scales at once. Weapons that could destroy worlds looked like toys beside its bulk. From this impossible ship came a transmission that reached every vessel in the system simultaneously. The voice that spoke was human, but changed by centuries of evolution beyond normal limits. This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Human Stellar Commonwealth, the voice announced. By authority of the inheritors of the Architect legacy, I order all hostilities to cease immediately. Silence fell across the battlefield. Every being in the system stared at their screens in shock. Humans? But humans had been extinct for centuries, dead in the void sectors where they had been exiled. General Thraknar recovered first. Impossible. Humans died out long ago. This is some coalition trick. We did not die, General. Sarah's voice replied with infinite calm. We evolved. What happened next would be remembered in galactic history as the demonstration. The human ships didn't attack. Instead, they simply showed what they had become. Draknari weapons fired at the human vessels. The energy beams passed harmlessly through hulls that shifted between dimensions. Missiles found no targets as the ships existed in spaces that conventional physics couldn't reach. Then the humans responded. But not with violence. The Draknari flagship suddenly found itself moved. Not destroyed, not damaged, but gently relocated to empty space 1,000,000 kilometers away. The planet-killer weapon simply stopped working. Its components rearranged at the molecular level into harmless metal sculptures. Across the battlefield, Weapons fell silent. Not because they were destroyed, but because they had been transformed. Warships found their weapons bays filled with flowering gardens. Torpedo tubes now contained beautiful artworks created from the same materials that had once made explosives. General Thrucknar stared in disbelief as his mighty war fleet was rendered helpless without a single shot being fired. His weapons were gone, replaced by things of beauty. His soldiers stood in corridors filled with alien flowers that somehow survived in vacuum. "What have you done?" he demanded. Sarah's image appeared on every screen in the system. She still looked human but transformed by centuries of enhancement. Her eyes held the wisdom of ages, and her presence seemed to extend beyond the boundaries of normal space. "We have shown you what we learned in exile," she said, "the power to create rather than destroy, the ability to transform conflict into beauty, the wisdom to see beyond the limitations that once bound us." High Speaker Zelathan's crystalline form blazed with amazement and fear. "You have transcended every known law of physics. What are you?" "We are what you made us," Sarah replied. "When you cast us into the void sectors, you forced us to grow beyond every boundary. We learned from the architects. We became their inheritors. And we discovered something neither they nor you ever understood." "What?" Zelathan whispered. "That consciousness itself is the fundamental force of the universe. Matter and energy are merely its expressions. We have learned to reshape reality through will alone, tempered by wisdom and guided by compassion." Around the system, human ships began to demonstrate their capabilities. They healed damaged coalition vessels with a touch. They transformed asteroids into garden worlds in minutes. They opened doorways through space that led to the hidden dimensional colonies where humanity had thrived. "For 3 centuries we have watched you in secret," Sarah continued. "We have helped where we could, guiding the galaxy toward peace and prosperity. We ended plagues, prevented disasters, and inspired breakthroughs in art and science. The revelation hit the assembled fleets like a shockwave. The mysterious miracles that had blessed the galaxy for centuries, the unexplained solutions to impossible problems, the dreams that had changed minds and ended conflicts. All of it had been humanity, working in shadows to help the species that had rejected them." "Why?" General Thrucknar asked, his voice broken. "We exiled you. We tried to destroy you. Why would you help us?" Sarah's smile was sad but genuine. "Because that is what humans do. We adapt. We forgive, we grow, and we help others grow alongside us." She gestured to the transformed battlefield around them. "Your war is over not because we conquered you, but because we have shown you a better way. The galaxy stands at a crossroads. You can continue the old patterns of conflict and competition, or you can join us in building something greater." The choice was clear. Faced with beings who could reshape reality itself but chose to heal rather than harm, the galaxy's perspective shifted fundamentally. The Second Galactic War ended not with surrender, but with wonder. Humanity had returned not as conquerors but as teachers. The exile was over. The real transformation of the galaxy was about to begin. 10 years had passed since the demonstration ended the Second Galactic War. The galaxy that emerged from that conflict was transformed beyond recognition. President Elena Vasquez stood in the central plaza of Unity Station, the new seat of galactic government. Around her, beings from dozens of worlds worked together on projects that would have been impossible under the old council system. Zephyrian crystals grew alongside Melody biocircuits. Draknari warriors collaborated with gastropod engineers. Human children played with alien youngsters in gardens that existed in 7 dimensions simultaneously. The old Galactic Council had dissolved not through conquest, but through obsolescence. When humanity offered a new way of organizing galactic civilization, most species eagerly embraced the change. They had seen what humans could accomplish when freed from artificial limitations. They wanted to learn how to transcend their own boundaries. The stellar commonwealth that replaced the council operated on principles the old order had never imagined. Instead of rigid hierarchies based on age and power, it celebrated diversity and cooperation. Every species contributed its unique strengths to the common good. The Zephyrians found their pursuit of pure logic enhanced by human creativity and emotion. The Draknari discovered that their warrior culture gained new meaning when directed toward protecting and building, rather than conquering. The gastropods learned to combine their natural patience with human adaptability to solve problems that had seemed impossible. Dr. Tommy Chen, now the Commonwealth's chief research coordinator, reviewed the latest reports from across the galaxy. His office existed in a pocket dimension that could expand to accommodate visitors from any species. Today he was meeting with representatives from the Exploration Initiative. The frontier colonies are exceeding all expectations, reported Captain Vextai, a young Dreknari who had grown up in the new Galactic Order. The Andromeda Gateway project is ahead of schedule. The Andromeda Gateway was humanity's gift to the galaxy, a permanent portal to the neighboring galaxy that would open infinite new worlds for exploration and settlement. It combined human dimensional engineering with technologies contributed by every member species. Any resistance from the old guard? Tommy asked. Less each year, Captain Vextai replied. The benefits are too obvious to ignore. The new colonies are reporting agricultural yields 3 times higher than traditional settlements. Disease rates are down 90%. Even the most conservative species are requesting Commonwealth assistance. Not every species had embraced the changes immediately. The ancient progenitor collective initially rejected human offers of technological sharing, clinging to their billion-year-old traditions. Some Zephyrian isolationists retreated to distant worlds, refusing contact with the new order. But resistance crumbled as the benefits became undeniable. Commonwealth worlds enjoyed prosperity beyond anything the galaxy had known. Poverty became obsolete when matter converters could transform asteroid rocks into any needed resource. Disease disappeared as human medical technology repaired damage at the cellular level. War became pointless when conflicts could be resolved through shared consciousness experiences that let opposing sides truly understand each other's perspectives. Admiral Sarah Chen, now serving as the Commonwealth's primary ambassador, materialized in the council chamber through dimensional transit. Her form had evolved beyond purely human appearance, incorporating modifications that let her survive in any environment and communicate with any species. Status report on the Integration Initiative, she requested. Her aide, a hybrid consciousness that combined human and Zephyrian thinking patterns, provided the update. 17 more systems have requested full Commonwealth membership this month. The Rigelian Federation voted unanimously to adopt our governance model. Even the Veil Collective has begun tentative cooperation. The Integration Initiative was humanity's patient effort to help other species evolve beyond their traditional limitations. They didn't force change, but offered tools and knowledge to any who asked for help. The results were remarkable. Melody botanists learned to grow plants that could survive in the vacuum of space. Gastropod engineers developed construction techniques that worked in multiple dimensions. Dreknari warriors discovered new forms of strength that came from protecting life rather than taking it. But the real transformation was happening in the younger generations. Children born in Commonwealth space grew up assuming that cooperation between species was natural. They learned to communicate through shared consciousness as easily as spoken language. They could perceive multiple dimensions and manipulate matter with their thoughts. These children were becoming something new. Truly galactic citizens who belonged to no single species but embodied the best qualities of all. In the deepest levels of the Commonwealth's consciousness networks, the Council of Minds continued their eternal deliberations. Sarah's expanded awareness touched theirs as they contemplated the galaxy's future. The transformation is accelerating, observed Dr. Martinez. His consciousness now spanned star systems, monitoring the health of entire civilizations. The integration between species is proceeding faster than our most optimistic projections. What about the long-term projections? Sarah asked. Dr. Vasquez shared her analysis through direct mental connection. Within a century, the distinction between species will become largely academic. We're seeing the emergence of a truly unified galactic consciousness while still preserving individual identity and cultural diversity. This was humanity's greatest gift to the galaxy, the ability to become more than any single species while remaining uniquely themselves. They had learned this lesson in the void sectors, where survival required constant adaptation without losing their essential humanity. The void sectors themselves had become the Commonwealth's greatest treasure. Once considered a wasteland suitable only for exile, they were now recognized as the most valuable region of space. The dimensional technologies developed there allowed for unlimited expansion without environmental destruction. The consciousness transfer systems conquered death itself. The matter conversion technologies eliminated scarcity. General Thraknar, former commander of the Dreknari Empire, now served as the Commonwealth's military advisor. His transformation from conqueror to protector symbolized the galaxy's journey. "The border surveys are complete," he reported to the Council. "We've identified 3 new regions suitable for expansion. The gateway construction teams are ready to begin." Where once the Dreknari had sought to conquer territory, they now helped build pathways to new worlds that could be shared by all species. Where once they had hoarded resources, they now distributed abundance freely. "What about security concerns?" Sarah asked. "Minimal," Thraknar replied. "The few remaining resistor groups lack popular support. Most have accepted integration offers. We're dealing with political disagreements, not genuine threats." The old cycles of conflict had been broken not through force but through demonstration of better alternatives, when species could see their neighbors prospering through cooperation. Competition for limited resources became meaningless. On New Earth, the dimensional colony that served as humanity's symbolic capital, children from dozens of worlds attended schools that existed in folded space. They learned histories that spanned millions of years and sciences that bent reality itself. 8-year-old Zara, whose genetic heritage included human, Zephyrian, and melody traits, raised her hand in class. "Teacher, why did the old galaxy exile humans?" Her instructor, a consciousness that combined the experiences of dozens of species, considered the question carefully. "Because they were afraid," the teacher explained. "The old galaxy valued predictability and control. Humans represented change and chaos. They couldn't imagine that chaos might lead to something beautiful. But the humans helped them anyway? Yes, because humans understood something the old galaxy had forgotten, that diversity and change are the sources of strength, not weakness. When you try to eliminate what you don't understand, you lose the chance to learn from it." The lesson was recorded in the galactic archives alongside billions of others. Future generations would study this period as the Great Transformation, when a single species exile became the catalyst for galactic evolution. As the years passed, the Commonwealth continued to grow and evolve. New species joined voluntarily, attracted by the promise of unlimited potential. The galaxy that had once feared human unpredictability now celebrated it as the key to continuous improvement. Standing in her office aboard Unity Station, President Vasquez looked out at the impossible vista before her. Ships from hundreds of worlds moved through space that folded and twisted according to laws that physics was still learning to describe. Children played in parks that existed in multiple dimensions. Artists created beauty that touched senses no single species possessed. The galaxy that had tried to exile humanity for being too human had instead set them free to become more human than ever before. And in doing so, it had discovered what it truly meant to reach for the stars. The transformation was complete. The galaxy had not been conquered or controlled. It had been inspired to become something greater than anyone had ever imagined possible. Humanity had indeed claimed the stars, but not through force or domination.